So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the final Fund It Wednesday webinar of 2020. So this evening's theme is film and animation and publishing, and I'm really delighted to have three really great panelists here this evening. I'm Michelle Reid, I'm project manager with Fund It, and this evening we have Deirdre Mulrooney and Declan Mills and Olly Blake. So welcome, guys. Thanks a million for joining this evening. For anyone who is watching and wants to know a little bit more about Fund It, I won't go into too much detail, but just an overview that we're an all-island, all or nothing rewards-based crowdfunding platform. So all or nothing, once you set your target, you have to reach it or you don't get any of the funds. Rewards-based, you have to offer some type of rewards to your funders and then deliver them after your project finishes. And and we're all around Ireland, so both north and south, and you can do your crowdfunding project either in sterling or euro. So over the last 9 years, about €5 million has been raised on Fund It for around 1,100 projects. So we've had a huge impact on the creative community and the creative industry in Ireland. And we're really, really pleased to have three people here this evening who've successfully crowdfunded using Fund It, and Deirdre, I'm happy to say, is a repeat user of Fund It. So she's done 3 projects, which is fantastic. So we're going to hear a little bit more about that. If you have to hop off at any time, we will be recording this this webinar, and you'll be able to find it on the Business to Arts YouTube channel. So Business to Arts is essentially the mothership of Fund It. And if you have any questions, if you want to put them in the Q&A, we'll kind of ask maybe during tonight's chat, and we'll be finishing up at around 10 to 8 or 5 to 8. So Deirdre, I'm going to come to you first. So Deirdre is a writer, a dance historian, a filmmaker, many other things from when I was looking on your website. So multi-talented. So you've done 3 projects on Fund It, and I was looking there just kind of totting up how much you've raised over the 3 projects, and it comes to around €10,500, which is pretty impressive. And your projects were in 2012, 2017, and then most recently in 2019. And the 2019 film was Lucia Joyce, Full Capacity. So maybe if you want to give us maybe a short intro about how that project came about in terms of how you wanted to crowdfund for that project. And I think you raised around, was it €4,000 for that one?
Over 4,000. Yeah. So Brilliant. Like, you know, we achieved more than our goal. So, you know, that was great. But also there's that point, you know, when it is quite stressful, like when you're trying to reach your goal. And then once you reach it, you can kind of relax, you know, and watch any extra donations come in. It's a nice point to reach. But yeah, as you were saying there, like I'm a dance historian as well as a filmmaker and documentary maker. And I've been doing a lot of work about Lucia Joyce, and that's James Joyce's daughter, and reclaiming her as an artist, really, you know. And so she was kind of misunderstood, you know, for a long time. Like she was locked up in asylums for more than half her life, and her identity as an artist, you know, was just not really realized about it all. So you know, so I've been doing a lot of research on that, and I, you know, was wondering who would be the perfect Lucia. And I actually read an interview with Ivana Lynch, who was Luna Lovegood in Harry Potter. When she was on Dancing with the Stars LA, she was a finalist in that. And in her interview, she mentioned that one of the roles she'd really like to play was Lucia Joyce. And I was like, oh my God, she is the perfect Lucia Joyce. So luckily, Ireland being what it is, I knew her uncle, so so I could get in touch with her. I was like, oh, I just read that your niece, you know, wants to play Lucia Joyce. I said, I'm sure she has Hollywood in mind, but you know, she can be in my film. If she likes
taking the opportunity.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And so he very kindly introduced us, and she's actually very passionate about, like me, about reclaiming Lucia Joyce and, you know, representing her as an artist and a story of suppressed creativity. So being, you know, such a great actress, you know, she'd very little availability. She was only available for like 2 weeks in February 2019. So, you know, Funded was just perfect, you know, to be able to, and she was up for this as well, you know, and that's another thing about Funded, you know, like it's really good for projects that you're very passionate about telling and kind of galvanizing a community, you know, around a cause and kind of rescuing lost stories and stuff like that, or, you know, publishing things that people are very passionate about. So so she came on board, and you know, I got the team together, and we got a lot of support from, you know, a lot of places like Notre Dame, who let us rehearse there, Poetry Ireland, who let us film there, you know, and then fund it, like, you know, enabling us to pay like fantastic choreographer Megan Kennedy, you know, cameraman Claire Garvey doing costume, you know, like it was great. And so we organized the rewards, and as you do, and focusing around a photograph, you know, kind of a recreating a historic photograph. And then we offered that as one of the rewards, as well as creating an event, which actually we had our crowdfunder evening, which was wonderful, at Molly, you know, the Museum of Literature of Ireland.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah.
And Deirdre, so I might come back to the rewards and how you kind of structured those. I'm going to move on to Declan, and another person who was passionate about their project. So Declan is an actor and producer, and the film that he was crowdfunding for on Funded was Be Good or Be Gone, which was a feature film, and it was a dramatic comedy about two characters who are on temporary release from prison, and I think a few days following them around and their goings on while they're out and about. So I suppose in terms of, this was crowdfunding for the post-production, so the final phase of this feature film. And Declan, I suppose, do you want to tell us maybe just briefly in terms of how you decided on going down the crowdfunding route for this particular part of your feature?
Well, we had exhausted a number of avenues to get funding, and we basically wanted to. We knew we'd probably have to crowdfund some part of it. So if it wasn't pre-production, okay, we got away with that. Not production, okay, we got away with that. So now we've got it. You know, we kind of leaving it to the end, because we didn't want to do a second one for the same project. So we got to leave it to the end. But this is over a number of years. So the project started about 10 years ago, and it had its first screening last year. So it was about 9 years in the making. So where post-production was concerned, we were looking for 8,600, which in all, in the whole budget wise is probably about 3% of the whole budget, maybe less than 3%. So it was one strand of post-production, really. So we basically got we had a number of different post-production houses on the list, but the guys that we had most connection with gave us a quote, I think probably somewhere around double that, and we said, okay, well, we can raise the other part ourselves, or half of it ourselves, and then we'll go through fund it for this, because it was collectively it was our first time to do a funded together, but it wasn't my first time, or individually we done funded. The director had 3 shorts, I think, that he did through crowdfunding. Not sure if it was through you guys, possibly was, and the Les Martin, who wrote the script originally and plays one of the lead characters, he was part of a theatre company called Purple Heart, and they did some crowdfunding stuff. So we all had individual experience of it to some degree. So what we've learned, like basically through this project, and in every project, and I'm sure the guys will agree, is that really it's about collaboration. You know, the more people you speak to, well, the more other people will be interested. If it's raising money, raising interest, trying to get favors. So the more people you speak out to, you know, the better chance we have. So this is what we did with the post-production thing. We had a lot of different folks to choose from. We ended up going with these guys in Galway, and we said, okay, well, 50% of what they were asking for, some of it, technically it's to do with a portion of the grade, which makes the film look, there's a kind of a continuity and look with the film. Basically, it's like, you know, when you get a photograph on your phone, you can play with it, make it black and white, or, you know, make it softer or harder. That's pretty much what it's doing with a little bit more sophisticated, but a little bit, but I'm not technical, but that's basically what they were doing with the film. So we had a specific target to reach, to get that done, and then we thought we'll push it a little bit more to see if we can get some extra cash to do some of the sound, a portion of that, and the first sound mix, and then to thirdly to have some money to submit to festivals. Because if we go to people saying, hey, we want to get a grade done, they go, what's a grade? Or we want to get a sound mix done, what's that? But they'll know what festivals are, you know? And we thought they'd be much more part of the journey with us, you know, because we could offer them something. And the festival circuit, well, you could spend 2 years in it easily, and you could spend 10,000 euros just applying. So it was bringing everybody together, you know, on the journey with us, not just, hey, we got the grade, and people go, what the hell is that? You know, so the funded money, I suppose, was about 5 weeks in the making, I think. 5 weeks, yeah, and we spent about 3 months preparing for it. And again, it was just like playing a role, you know, because you hate asking. And you don't want to ask for stuff. You want to say, hey, come join us, do this. Be part of this with us, you know? It's not just like, please give us some money. It's like, be part of this. This is an adventure. Come along the adventure, or whatever the product or the book or the film or whatever it might be. And it also helps us in trying to clarify what we always wanted to do. Because when you start with the script, it's who are you and what do you want? And you never really answer that question. So 8 years down the line, we have, you know, an answer to it. But then after getting everybody's input and talking to people and trying to, I suppose, inject some enthusiasm into them that we have a different answer. So,
I'm going to stop you there, Declan, because I think there's some really interesting points there around clear communication. And I think, you know, actually how you're communicating what your project is. Which I know Deirdre as well, actually kind of getting clarity around that for your funders. And again, Declan, I think it's really interesting what you're saying there around, it's very easy to use the jargon, like technical jargon of, we want to raise 10,000 for, you know, a grade, but actually packaging it and how you package it for your funders so that they understand and they're becoming part of it. And I know you guys, like there was a lot of collaboration, but you know, you had different teams working on it. But Olly, if I come over to you, hi Olly, how are you doing? I know you're just in from work. In terms of, so your experience is a little bit different. So Olly is an illustrator and story writer, and you work in a children's animation company based in Dublin. And yours was a real passion project. So you raised nearly €3,000, which is a significant amount when you're doing it on your own as well, for your first ever children's illustrated book. So I suppose if you wanted to maybe just briefly talk us through, I suppose, how you came to that target and, you know, what made you decide to go down the crowdfunding route for this book?
Yeah, sure. Like you say, I am completely new to doing funding, and this is also my first book. So I was kind of starting from scratch with everything, and trying to work out how I, finance getting a book self-published. and I'm terrible with finances and stuff like that. And I owe a lot to fundit.com for actually managing to get the funds and stuff to get everything printed, and of course, like to the people who funded. So with the book and with the funding campaign, what I was getting funds for was getting it printed, and also like booking a venue to have like a sort of book launch. So for the book, what I did was a lot of research was involved in like finding out how to get it printed and bound and everything like that. I'd already like created all of the illustrations, and I've
and they were really beautiful. They were really great. I mean, in terms of your visuals for your project, they were really, really strong. Even in terms of like all the headers you had custom, like it was like a dream when I was looking at it, you know, it was really, really well done. And it's interesting, I suppose, I'm going to come back to all of you because Deirdre would have had the luxury of having your events, so your rewards. If you were offering an event, you would have done it in real life. But I know for Declan and Olly, it was definitely a bit challenging. But I suppose if we kind of look at the structure of when we're planning project, and you've all kind of mentioned, you know, different things that you were considering when you were, you know, planning your project, like Declan, thinking about it for 3 months, brilliant, you know, that level of consideration. We would see a lot of projects come in where people, as you say, Olly, you've been doing research around the costs, your budget, you know, who could potentially fund you, what your messaging is going to be. So a lot of that preparation really can happen either before you get in touch with Fundit, or using we have lots of FAQs, we have creator handbook, and we're always on hand to answer any questions. But I suppose in terms of Deirdre, for you, you know, you're saying there that you obviously had this incredible star to feature in your film, but in terms of who was going to fund your project, because it's quite niche what you're doing, but I suppose in terms of also people with that kind of niche interest could be very passionate about it. So how did you go about accessing these funders, or like how did you approach them, or where did you find them?
Yeah, great question. You know, it's always very surprising where your greatest funders are going to come out of. I mean, apart from like your mother or but yeah, like so like I kind of, you know, we did a kind of campaign on Twitter and Facebook and emailing people without wanting to kind of pester people, you know, but kind of offering that, telling them about it and offering them an opportunity to come on the adventure, as Declan so nicely put it there when he was talking about his project. So yeah, I mean, like, I suppose I had the benefit of having done the crowdfunding before, and like, you know, I know like it's hard work, you know, but you have to have that kind of very upbeat attitude, I think, you know, and this thing of like creating the community. I do remember like Ivana has like millions of Instagram.
Yeah, I was gonna say, of all the
so
Twitter,
I was like, oh, this is just
media,
gonna be such a doddle, you know what I mean? Like as soon as she puts up a post, oh, it's just gonna come like pouring in. But funnily enough, it didn't.
They were more interested in the Harry Potter side of things, maybe. Okay.
They all just put €1, you know, but that just didn't happen, you know. So it was just the, you know, the usual way of like, you know, social media, email, you know, and like it just was amazing, the support that came out from surprising quarters. Do you know what I mean? Like people
and
I've never met, you know.
It's interesting because you can find, like, you know, people say like, you know, who's going to fund, and it really does start from your inner circle and then it works out. But what we kind of find anecdotally from funders, and be interesting maybe from you guys, is people say like sometimes it's like 30% of their funders, they have no idea who these people are. They've never seen the names before. Or I remember I was chatting with a panelist once, and they said that they saw a couple of names of people that they had been in school with that they hadn't talked to in probably 20 years, but they knew the name. They'd obviously seen the posts on Facebook or something like that. So I suppose it is that you have to have that confidence in terms of going out and reaching out to every type of network. And I suppose there is the balance between using social media in an effective way and communicating in an effective way, as opposed to badgering people. And I suppose what we work with when you come to us as project creators is kind of challenging and kind of pushing you guys to think about, well, what are you communicating? You know, the thing that makes me the saddest is when people put a project live and then they just put the link and say, donate here, and a button. You know, there really has to be a concerted kind of effort to create a campaign around, like, what's the story of this project, who we are as a team, what's going to happen from this. And I think all of you guys had a very different approach and a very different story. Like, you know, with you, Olly, this is your passion project. You've had this like bubbling away in your brain, and you have these beautiful visuals to kind of communicate that quite clearly. You know, like, people, you could see just very clearly from your project, wow, that's the book that I'm going to get if I pledge. And then with you, Declan, like, your video, I thought was, you know, it was really professional in terms of, you know, this is the end of obviously a very considered process that you guys have been going through for years. And, you know, it came across, you know, that it was very much this last portion that you needed to get over the line. You know, it was very clearly communicated. And with you, Declan, I suppose in terms of your funders for the project and accessing them, did you have databases, or were you relying mostly on social media? How did you go about that?
Well, it's the same process again of everybody closer to you, and then start to, you know, widen the circle. So there were 4 of us kind of around a cauldron trying to conjure up spells to get people to pledge to us. And it was a great opportunity for us to kind of try and retell the story so we could get people enthusiastic about it. And if we did that, the very least we would do, if we didn't get any of the money or any of the funds, but at least it would be a wider pool of people that were familiar with the name of the project, or have, the story is about 2 guys that have 4 days to get out of, they get a temporary release from prison. They've got 4 days, the 2 cousins, and one of them is trying to get a ring on the finger of his girlfriend, and the second one wants to become a fashion designer, but he's got a heroin problem. So this is, there's a time frame, and there's what's going to happen over these 4 days. So it was basically getting a chance to get people enthusiastic about the story again, and to try and not focus on too much on the figures. Of course, we have to list a number of pledges and things like that, but it was really just at the very, very least we're going to do is people will know the name. A number of people, if my immediate family know it, then my cousin's going to know it. My cousin's going to know it, then friends or other communities we're involved in. Like as I said, well, I've a touchy school with my wife, so I said to myself, will I start? Do I want to dip into that pool? Do I want to have questions for the next year going, how's the film going? I gave you 50 quid, and just to focus away from the numbers and just work on spreading the story. So we also had a number of meetings previously with different finance agencies, you might say, through like Arts Council type ones, like the film board and things like that. And they put us in touch with different investors who invest in much larger projects with 6, 7, 8-figure projects. So we thought, well, then maybe these guys might, would be able to kind of know somebody who'll take a bet on it and give us, maybe the whole thing in one go easily, because that would be nothing to them. Because originally we're looking for like 175,000 or something crazy like that. But that didn't come to fruition at all. And we thought, we're thinking about numbers again. We've got to stop thinking about numbers. We've got to come back to the story. We've gotten lost on trying to get the figures up. we must come back to, and
It's quite-
through
quite-
that working the story, people got enthusiastic about it.
Well,
You're gonna
look,
ask us
it's quite
something?
holistic. It's quite holistic. I think it's even interesting
Yeah.
the fact that you do Tai Chi. I think, you know, and I've done your class, by the way.
Yeah.
It's a holistic thing.
Our
you
worlds
know.
are colliding here.
No, because
Yeah.
it's, you know, it's the marketing, the building of community,
Yeah.
you know, and it's really
Yeah.
is like a kind of like power to the people, I think. You know,
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, the Taoist process of
energy.
collaboration and
It's-
competition must be entwined
Yeah.
for us to move forward. You know, so don't get me started on all that. But
And
it
Olly,
must be those two things.
And Olly, can I ask you in terms of, so I suppose yours is like a pre-sale of a book. So I think it works really, really well on crowdfunding. I suppose it's slightly different from the guys from the film, but you are an animator and an illustrator as well. And in terms of like your network, like what channel did you find worked best? Were you like texting people or emailing people or using social media? What did you think was the most effective for your network?
Yeah, I was using mainly like Facebook. That's where like you can go and you can see like where I was doing all my posts, and it's interesting what people are saying about taking people on the journey and involving them as well. It was kind of how the thing really took off, because people were contacting me and asking me about the book and everything like that. And they were getting engaged with the posts and stuff that I was posting on Facebook. And I was just really shocked, actually, that it all, you know, worked. You know, I'm still surprised that I actually got funded and reached the target and everything like that.
Yeah, and you went over the target as well. Yeah. But the book is about it's called There Are Mud Puddles Everywhere. So what's the premise of, well, the premise is about mud puddles, but it's a children's book.
Yeah. Like again, it's my first kind of foray into doing children's literature, but I came up with the idea because I guess I wanted to sort of emulate something like a Quentin Blake sort of illustrated sort of dip pen and watercolor type of artwork, and then like the story, it was probably the most difficult part. I spent a lot of time working on the book, honestly. I went to like courses and stuff like that, and I talked with illustrators and I got people's feedback. And I wrote it like about 3 times and did it different art styles. I even did use like watercolor pencil at one point, and I was going to do it completely different. But Mud Puddles is kind of actually a joke in a way, that like how bad my watercolor drawings were at the start, at the beginning. They just looked like mud puddles, like they were all kind of, colors would just, you know, come together, and that's what you end up with. Yeah, it was kind of like, I guess like I'd hate for anyone to like learn from my process, because I've made every kind of mistake along the way, and I had people point out obvious kind of problems that I've had like in the story and everything like that.
Yeah.
But
so is the book it's totally printed now and delivered to your funders?
Everyone who pledged like €15 paid for the full postage in the book and everything like that. So they've been sent out, and because of the COVID whole situation, like I haven't had the book launch yet.
Yeah. And I might come back to that, because I suppose in terms of, so you had offered one of the rewards that you'd offered. So I suppose just to kind of, for people watching, so a reward is essentially something that you offer at different scales, so different values, usually starting from around €10, and they can go up to anywhere you like, but usually you'd offer a menu of rewards. So all of you guys had an in-person event to either a launch of a viewing of a screening of the film or a launch of the book. And I suppose we always encourage these types of kind of unique events, sort of money can't buy experiences that you can have especially if it's something like, let's say, a book or something, or a product that you know that you might actually be able to offer in another way. So just trying to have the funded page, having stuff on it that people will constantly have to come there, and the traffic has to come through the funded project. So Deirdre, you had screenings, you had thank yous, credits in the film, signed stills, DVDs, executive producer credit.
Yeah,
that
was amazing to get actually we did get an executive producer
okay.
you know, that I'd never met before, which was an incredible support, you know, because it was a large percentage, you know, and it was amazing then to meet her, you know, like when I was showing the film in Kerry, to meet this woman at the screening who, you know, her name was on the screen as an executive producer. So yeah, I think it's lovely to have people's names on the end of the film as well, you know, and that there's a real sense of belonging to the project.
Yeah, and can I ask, so you've done 3 projects now, so you have a bit more experience, and like what I would always find with project creators is, like, anecdotally, after a project, they always say the one thing if they were going to do differently is structure their rewards differently, because the delivery of the rewards can be quite, I suppose, quite, you know, it can be quite time consuming. It depends on what you're offering, you know, if it's something that's digital or something like that. But yeah, I suppose in terms of that, is there anything that you reflected on from, let's say, the first or second campaign that you were like, okay, I'm not going to do that again, like I've learned for the third one, I know, you know, or how did you find that?
I think I was very lucky, like in terms of, you know, and Olly, you'd appreciate this, like, you know, with printing costs, you know, so like I was making a film, but then some of the awards were going to be limited edition prints, you know, so then obviously there's an extra cost in that, and sort of getting them printed in that. But I was very lucky that, you know, I had support from Inspirational Arts printers who printed them for free as their contribution, or like the Darkroom photographic studio who contributed, that was their contribution to the project. But things like, you know, postage and envelopes and stuff like that, you know, I would say think very carefully, you know. And also an event, you know, there's a lot of costs involved in an event as well. Like, you know, I was lucky to get support from Molly, but then, you know, you have to give everybody a drink and, you know, that kind of thing. So there are like extra costs, but actually I think that, like, you know, the energy of the whole thing and bringing people together, like, it's always worth it, because there's more, you know what I mean? It's a bonus, you know, the community, the marketing, the energy, the spin-offs, you know what I mean? Like, and just, it's a very nice vibe as well, you know, to be able to present the work and everyone is delighted with it, you know, and people make connections as well. So, you know, yeah.
And so Declan, so I know you've had a bit of a different experience with some of your rewards, and I know as well, even just your film as well. So did you get to do the screen? Have you got to do the screen kind of?
Yeah, we had a screening in the Lighthouse.
Okay, you did. Okay, great.
Yeah, we had a screening in the Lighthouse, and we put, I think, outside of the cast and crew, there's about 113 people involved, and 89 of those names were from funded. So we put all their names in the credits at the very end. So it was basically one of those, do you want to see your name on a big screen? You know, well, if you come along here, you can see it, you know, and okay. And it's funny because, you know, not to say I'd be used to it, but I've been in a number of films before. But if you say to somebody that there's something in the eye where they go, really? Can I, you know, go to a cinema and actually see? Yeah, you could, you know, and it'll be shown in Singapore and Australia, and they'll be looking at your name, your Auntie Nellie will be looking at your, and so that was quite interesting. I was really surprised at a number of people who were not interested in taking the reward, which was quite odd. And we had one, I mean, we had the event, and we had again, some of the music in the film was written by we used a song from Aslan, and they gave us a copy of one of their albums that was re-released that year, that only 1,000 were pressed. So we got a signed copy of that, you know, with a gold pen, and that became a bit of a target for some people. Like, I get a phone call saying, "Is that reward gone?" You know, and the event was, yeah, that's great, my name up in the thing, but is that reward? So some people were quite like product driven, and other people were more event driven. But I think we wanted to be more of an event driven entity, really, because it's, again, although we had gotten so far, it's just a stage in the journey for us. After the funding campaign finishes and we use that money, we've got another couple of stages to go. So that won't finish until about spring next year, when everybody will get the DVDs, because we couldn't give them out already, because they'd be ripped and put on the internet, and then the distribution company would come looking for us, you know. Yeah. So it was kind of come along, and you can see it at festivals and that screenings which was great, actually, because the international screenings went online. We had 2 in the United States and 1 in Canada, and won awards at all of them. Brilliant. And so the Dubs could see it. You know, they could see the Ontario Festival, or they could see the ones in New York or LA. So that was cool. But we didn't have a product as such, like Olly would have, like a beautiful, tangible thing to put in your hand. It was always going to be a bit more, you know, part of the journey, part of the adventure.
Yeah, and that can be a challenge for some people to, you know, like, are people going to come on board with this? And I think that is around the storytelling and how you're presenting the product, you know, how you're presenting the campaign. And with Olly, so we have a question for you about your book. And so I'll ask you in terms of, and I might actually try and link it in with your campaign. So the person is asking, can you tell us more about the characters in your children's book? And I suppose I'm going to link that a little bit with your campaign. Did you talk about your characters when you were promoting the campaign? Like, as you were going along, did you engage people in the characters for your funded campaign?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of it's in the preparation and like planning the campaign. Like, you have to actually come up with the posts and the content that you're going to provide along the way. And like, because I have a full-time job and everything like that, I'm not gonna be sitting around all day like coming up with clever ideas of like what to post and stuff. So before I launched my funded campaign, I came up with like some ideas. Like, so I wanted to do some original artwork to share with people and like show them the process and how I actually work. So I did do drawing. So the main character of my book is Simon, and he's like a boy who's obsessed with mud puddles. But then his house gets sunk into a mud puddle, and he has to go on an adventure to find a new home. He kind of involves his parents as well, and they kind of resemble my own parents. And then his best friend is a pig, and he ends up befriending a pirate pig, and they end up like moving a ship over to where their house was. But that's basically spoiled the whole thing. But
spoiler alert! I didn't know I had to do that tonight. Well, actually, good for you as well, Declan. So for all of you.
Yeah. So there was one character in it that was like halfway through called Beakfoot, and I actually filmed myself doing that. It's kind of like speed painting, but it was I think normally that term is used for like digital art, but it was just a live recording of me at my desk, and I was using the light box and using the dip pen and stuff like that. So that was fun to do. Yeah, it's great.
I think it's really lovely when you can actually involve people in the process, and I think that's interesting in terms of some people do that, throughout their campaign. They're bringing people already on the journey for things like, not everyone knows what, I mean, you said light box there. I'm like, I don't know what a light box is. And there are all these mysterious things about your jobs and your processes and the projects that you're working on that other people, they're curious about, and it's a way to get involved without, quitting whatever they're doing and becoming a filmmaker, and trying to get into it. So I think I suppose it's never underestimate the different, everything that's in your toolkit that you could be offering as a reward. There's really interesting things that people have offered. And I think I suppose in COVID times, having experiences online, we would have seen that before that, like for musicians even, offering to sing a song or, do a class online because they know that half of their fans are over in Germany or the US or something like that. So I suppose, even now people are maybe even more, predisposed to being like, okay, yeah, there's a reward that's online or, or something like that, and engaging with it that way. Cool. So I'm just looking at the time. So we're actually at nearly 8:15. So I suppose I'm going to we haven't delved too much into the mechanics of running a funded campaign. And for anyone watching, we have a creator handbook. We also have a team of people. If there are questions around probably a lot of different things about the mechanics of how do you, set your rewards, and, how do you get all of the details and everything like that. So I definitely recommend, looking at that and asking us. I'm not going to get into too much detail with the guys here around that, but what I really want to understand, I suppose, is the impact that the funded campaign has had on your project, your particular project, and I suppose kind of where you're at now with that project. Because we were kind of chatting about that, before we came onto the webinar. So Deirdre, I might come to you first in terms of where is Lucia Joyce, the full capacity film now, and I suppose the impact that in terms of fund it and the funds that you raised, how did that support it?
Oh yeah, the film has done like amazingly. It's kind of gone, Kerry Film Festival, Richard Harris Film Festival in Limerick, Waterford Film Festival. It's also been at Princeton and Notre Dame Carlmore Book Club. Then it's getting more into visual art context as well, the Elysium Gallery in Wales, and now Mex Index. It'll be on next Monday, which is the experimental film repository of Ireland. So yeah, I mean, it's really getting the story out there, which is what we really wanted to happen, and also it's kickstarting, like I want to develop more feature projects on the same topic, so it's kind of getting a bit of momentum behind that as well, so yeah, so that's great. And I don't know if I have time, but I just wanted to mention about the dance history research element of these campaigns.
Yes, you were saying yesterday. Yeah,
so on my previous project, which was in 2012, 1943, A Dance Odyssey, I had a little film from 1943 with little modern dancers. They were all like kind of 4 to 6 years old, being taught by an Irish-German modern dance pioneer, but nobody knew who they were. So part of the project was to find them. And on the pitch, the funded pitch, as I was talking, I had the film playing behind me, and you could see the little girls. And a friend of mine contributed and shared it on her Facebook page, the trailer. And a friend of hers in Berlin, who I didn't know from Adam, a photographer in Berlin, goes, "Oh my God, that's my mother," like at 2 minutes in. And it was her mother, who was living in Leeds and then ended up being part of the film and coming over and having a reunion, with her other fellow little dancers who she hadn't seen in 70 years. So, the actual funded campaign was part of the research, actually, in an amazing way. And
yeah, that's incredible. And it's amazing, actually, some of the stories we've heard about these connections and things that can happen, and as well even some of the funders that can become connected with the project. I know there was a musician who had one of the rewards was to come and come into the studio for while they were recording, and the funder came in with their daughter, their young daughter, and the daughter was sort of like la 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 singing, and the band or the guy was like, you know what, can we get a little sample of her and we'll put it on the album, so
Wow.
suddenly
Yeah.
Funder's daughter just had a little sample on an album, which is gorgeous. So
yeah, it's that
little serendipitous things
yeah.
can happen like that,
creative synergy. Like, it is a perfect platform for that kind of synergy to happen.
Absolutely, yeah. And Olly, coming to you, so the book at the moment, are you going to do a second book, or are you going to do a reprint of this or anything, or have you got any plans?
My plans at the moment are to try and sell the copies that I have printed already.
Okay.
But yeah, looking into the future a little bit, I do have like more stories with the same characters, and I work in animation, and like my main profession is like doing storyboarding and stuff like that. So I was I'm trying to see if like there's a way of turning it into like an animated series potentially, or something like along those lines. It's just very very early in the creation of that, like at the moment.
Brilliant.
So I have
Okay, well,
ideas, and I'm writing and coming up with stories.
mhm.
And yeah, just
Great. Well, we might see you on Fundit again for if you're crowdfunding for that.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
Declan, come to you. So I know you've had a kind of a different journey with the film in terms of your festival circuit than you anticipated. So where are you guys at now, and what sort of the last few months for you there?
Yeah, so the festivals we've been at have been all on the other side of the Atlantic, in the West Coast, East Coast, and in the middle in Ontario, in Canada. So we were in New Jersey, and we've won awards at each of them. And funnily enough, probably if we had not done the funded campaign, we might have had maybe a more targeted festival strategy in Europe, probably the UK and Ireland. But we decided to branch out and to hit the United States and involve people there. So if we had not have done that, we had not done the funded thing, we would have probably only done maybe 20% of what we did in the United States.
Okay.
So what happened, we submitted to a festival in Pasadena, and we were not successful in getting in. But the programmer said to a friend of hers from LA, take a look at this film, I think you might like it. He's a producer's rep, and that producer's rep ended up getting us a distribution deal with a quite large company in New York. So that all kicks in next spring.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So then the festivals in Ireland will kick in next year. So we'll have a few then.
Okay, yeah. Great. So you've kind of gone overseas and then you're coming back.
Overseas and come back, yeah. But there's one thing I just want to, I know you don't want to go into the mechanics of the funded thing, but I got to say that you know, you can very easily, especially with boys and with us, we use a lot of war metaphors, you know, to get the funding. You know, what's the campaign, like the campaign and in the trenches and all that kind of stuff. And I was trying to, in my head, like maybe to get more gardening ones to kind of like grow something, you know, but it can easily take you out of your comfort zone. And if the campaign is only 4 or 5 weeks or 6 or 8 weeks or whatever it is, and you're not a salesperson or you're not a kind of extrovert person, well, for those 5 or 6 weeks you are.
You have to
and you got, and it's really, it might not be easy, or if you think about it too much, but if you go into it and like give it, like you're going to put that hat on, I'm going to be that guy, I'm going to be, you know, the guy in the war room, or Monty Don in the garden. You're going to be that person. Get out there and involve more people, because the involvement of the people and their feedback, regardless of financially what may come into your arena, that is so valuable for yourself. If it's an artist thing or not, or a business thing, just for confidence wise and for the adventure of it, on a broader scale. And I think it's really worth it to have a go at it, merely for that, to get yourself slightly out of the comfort zone. And because we don't like to ask for stuff, I mean, I don't like to ask. I'm very, if I can't do it myself, it's out of my comfort zone to kind of ask for help. So I find it very rewarding, and I think it'll help me do other things, maybe outside the funded arena, but other things, in life, or other things that I might want to do in the arts as well. Just going through the process.
Like you do really have to reach out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm reaching out to you. Yeah, but thanks, Declan.
And
I think
people are
that's
happy to reach back out to you, and that's so surprising, and as you say, you don't know who's gonna, what dominoes are gonna follow down the road,
Yeah, and I suppose that's a useful. It's simple, but it is that thing of for every day. I don't know how many hours a day, and obviously, Olly, you were working 9 to 5:30 as well in the animation studio, but you probably need to spend around 2 to 3 hours a day doing something to do with your campaign. There's no kind of resting unless you build in I sometimes say to people, if they say, oh, I want to do a 10-week campaign, I'm like, well, are there a couple of weeks in there where you're not going to be working on the campaign? Like, is there a reason for 10 weeks? Because it's quite, you have to keep going, you have to keep the momentum going. And also you have to remember all the funders are also going to be listening to your Facebook posts and everything. So you have to get that balance right between keeping your momentum going, getting the message out, but not doing it for too long that everyone's just exhausted and wrecked. But I suppose to kind of to finish up, suppose for all of you, I know Declan's kind of already pitched in. I suppose in terms of if you had one piece of advice that you were going to give to somebody who's thinking about doing a crowdfunding campaign, what advice or insight would you have from your own experience to share?
I'd say one of the most practical things, and it's very important, is have some people lined up to contribute. You know what I mean? Don't just start at zero. Literally have people, a few people who want to contribute anyway and support you, but have them lined up, because it's just you have to see movement on it. You know what I mean? And it encourages a bit of movement, encourages more movement, so
and as well for your promotion, like I suppose if you launch your project and it's at zero and then you start promoting and you're doing this massive push and it's still at zero.
Yeah. And but also it's such a thrill. I'm sure the two guys will know there's no thrill looking at your thing and seeing someone has put some money in. You know what I mean?
Well, Declan was saying he was obsessed with it the other day. So
who is it? You love that person so much, It is, yeah. It's a great feeling, midnight. You're like, oh my God, someone put in 10 euros.
Olly, anything from your experience? Is there any one nugget that you'd
the piece of advice I would give probably would be that it's better to kind of start small and be realistic. You're not going to get a huge amount of money unless you've got a lot of work underneath you already, promoting you, or you have a great following or something like that. Preparation is really key, and I'd already completed the book before I started my campaign. You kind of make it seem like you are bringing them along with the making of the book, but it was already I had a dummy copy of it, and I knew exactly what I wanted. I wasn't contacting printers and stuff while I was doing my campaign. I wasn't getting samples of paper or stock or anything like that, or doing layouts. So
you were ready to go, you knew what the funding was for and you were ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the other guys might say the same thing, you need to know what the story is and be able to you know, confidently go and pitch the concept to everybody else, so they're like fully on board, you know.
Great, thanks, Olly. And Declan, any final nugget?
Oh, I think if I do another one similar to what we did before, I would say I let everybody know about it before it began. I'd have all those emails going out and be as personalized, make them as personalized as possible. I think regardless of what you're making or your project is, I think visual content is super important, and to have that ongoing and punctuate the weeks with visual content, be it video or photographs or something. And if it can involve directly, you know, geographically where you're doing it, or locations, or I mean, artwork. I mean, God, you know, I can imagine somebody with the gift of drawing like Olly has. That I think that will draw people in, because that's something that they haven't seen before, probably. You know, so something new that will catch their eye. So visual content being really useful. Punctuate the weeks with that. And have an angel donor, because of the structure of funded, you know, it's all or nothing. So have an angel donor that can come in and maybe, you know, top up, so you can get all your hard work rewarded. So that's pretty much it, I would say. Don't lose heart.
Progress is good, isn't it?
Sorry?
Offer a glimpse of the work in progress.
Yeah,
know,
or pretend,
really
yeah,
nice.
something, yeah, or potential, like we're going to do this here, or this is visually, I'm going to, you know, this is the structure of, so, and what do you think? Get people's responses, create a dialogue, you know, because people will talk about it, and there was an interesting point that somebody made, that when they get the video or they get the link, that they might not pledge something the first time. It's chances are it's the third or fourth time, you know, and not to be disheartened about, I got to send them out and nothing's happened. That it can take a little time to gestate. And I know, I think I'm like that when I was you know, on the receiving end of funded campaigns. You know, at the same time, my friend Aileen from the Remedy Club was doing something with an album. Himself and her husband, they have a band together. And I think I watched their video, or what it was, 2 or 3 times, or what snippets of it, before I ended up contributing something, you know. So unbeknownst to myself. So that's another thing, that people will give them time, and the more they're teased with content and brought into the story, well, then I think they'll get more involved. And if not to pledge, well, then for them to share what
exactly. And I think it's an interesting thing that the clock is ticking for you as the project creator, and you know that. But for another person, they might think it's up for 2 months, or they're not really taking that in. So it's kind of, the onus really is on you as a project creator to just tip and remind them. And sometimes, you know, I've had people say, oh, I've asked these people and they haven't come back to me. And I said, well, you can go back to them and say, there's only 2 days left of the campaign. If you don't pledge, then, you know, I might not be successful, and I'd really appreciate your pledge. And you know, some people, it's just a reminder, they are intending to do it, and as you say, they're digesting it, it's in the back of their head, they mean to go and do it, but they haven't had time to sit down, and stuff like that. So yeah, all really good points, guys. Thank you.
And don't hold it against people if they don't.
No, exactly.
Yeah, well, not for long.
You have your backlist of everybody. So listen, guys, we're just coming up to 8 o'clock. So I'm going to say thank you very much to Olly Blake and Declan Mills and Deirdre Mulrooney for your contribution. I really appreciate all your insights and talking about your projects, and really wish you the best of luck with the next stage of your journey with this project or the next project. And if anyone wants to take a look at the projects, you can, if you go on to fund it. So Olly's book is There's Mud Puddles Everywhere, and Deirdre's is Lucia Joyce, Full Capacity, and then Declan's is Be Good or Be Gone. So if you just put that into the search on Funded, you can have a look at their projects. and how they structured that. And if you have any questions about Fundit, you can email us at info@fundit.ie, and this this video will be on the Business to Arts YouTube page. Deirdre, was there some?
Yeah, I just got a question for Olly. Olly, where can we buy your book? I'd love to buy a copy. You said you have some for sale.
I do, yeah. The best thing to do really actually at this point is to contact me on Facebook. I have kind of like a PayPal link for getting people to pay me, but I'm trying to sort something out, like an online shop or something like that at the moment.
Okay, Facebook. We'll get
yeah, just send me a
I can
message.
link you up after as well if you'd like.
Yeah.
I can link you guys up for that. Well, listen, guys, thank you so much, and thanks to everyone for watching. And yeah, hopefully we'll maybe see you guys for another funded campaign in the near future. And thank you, and yeah, good night.
Thanks a million.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Thanks for the
Take
invite.
care.
Thank you.